Thank you, Dave.
Good afternoon. I'm David Rowan. I set up Wired Magazine's UK edition. Ran that for 8 years. I'm here with Pat Gelsinger from a company called VMware. It has about 22,000 people working for it, and it's pretty big. I think the last time I looked, Pat, revenue was about $8 billion.
Just under 8, yes, this year. So
operating margins were almost a third.
Yep.
That's a meaty company. But something happened just over a year ago. Explain.
Yeah, we had the Dell EMC merger, and largest tech merger in history. And Dell EMC coming together. EMC was the majority owner of VMware, so Dell became the majority owner of VMware on the other side of the transaction. And it was a pretty major, expectation. Two big companies coming together. Dell EMC, 130,000 people. VMware, 22,000 people. Our stock went from 80 to 40, and today we're trading at 120. So, things have gone well on the other side of the transition. But, how do you bring two companies together like that? And, largely a hardware company and a software company, and we just use 3 words to describe it. Independence, ecosystem, and acceleration. We'd remain an independent company. Dell would respect and honor the broad ecosystem, and they drive growth. And we said we'd produce $1 billion of synergies, revenue acceleration for VMware, and we're ahead of schedule. So on the other side of that transition for VMware, it's going extremely well.
As you say, though, this was, at the time, the biggest tech merger in history, $67 billion.
Yeah, enormous.
How do you ensure that two separate cultures combine in a positive rather than a friction-filled way?
Yeah, it was interesting because Michael and I, we were speaking at an event together in New York, and Michael spoke first, and then he introduces me. And he says, and here's my very successful and fiercely independent CEO, Pat Gelsinger. So I walk up on stage and I say, so if I wasn't being very successful, could I remain fiercely independent? And everybody got a good chuckle out of it at the time. But we've gone to great lengths to say this is where VMware is. We're operated under a separate board of directors. We have a related party transaction group that manages the relationship between the companies. We have independent shareholders that we have to make sure their interests are always satisfied. So we've really structured things in a positive way to make sure they're satisfied. But also, hey, Dell's driving more business for us. If you sell more of my products, I'm going to like you too, David, right? And we're seeing that benefit, that updraft from the relationship. So far, keeping a good, independent Silicon Valley software culture for VMware, and yet seeing the benefits of Dell and EMC come together.
So when did you last talk to Michael Dell?
I haven't talked to him since Thursday, I think. So it's been a few days. We'll catch up.
Regular to and fro.
Very, very regular. Michael loves to text. I get texts from him all the time, email, and it's a very active conversation. Michael and I have known each other since 1986. When he was barely out of high school and starting up Dell, he came to Intel. Right, and I'm the 38646 guy at Intel, and he's looking for microprocessors to go build PCs, so we've known each other for a long time, and the relationship is going quite well.
Why do you think we are in an era of such consolidation? We've had Broadcom in the news the last couple of days.
Yeah, what a huge deal for Hock Tan and that team if they're able to pull that off. My perspective is any time that industries are going through massive disruptive change, you will have consolidation of the old, right, as the new are burgeoning and creating the new. And, if you look at the major mergers, hardware companies have been merging, silicon companies have been merging, well-established categories of those that have been driving the big mergers. But on the other side, we see an explosion of new tech companies that are SaaS companies and new emerging software companies. There's no slowing of new companies emerging, even as the existing hardware, silicon, supply chain related companies are coming together. It's a very natural business cycle. It's sort of, finance 101, right? When you're growing rapidly, lots of disruption and change. When that flattens, you consolidate, you build efficiencies, supply chains and distribution become the kings, and mergers, they come together to drive that next level efficiency.
The worry among some of your customers, I guess, well, that's going to put the price of the services up. Fewer providers, leading towards monopolies, we're going to have to pay more?
Well, I think there's always some, questions around that. But, clearly there's pretty fierce competition going on. And HP and Dell, sort of the Hatfields and McCoys, or whatever the appropriate European analogy is, a lot of, very aggressive behaviors. And, the cloud vendors. Hey, they're going all the way to the supply chain themselves and building their own servers in many cases. So I don't think there's any, risk of that in the near term, that there's, one player who's able to raise prices. That has not at all been the case. And fundamentally, Moore's Law is still cranking along, and fundamentally computing is getting cheaper, storage is getting cheaper, networking is getting cheaper, and overall that's been the fuel that's enabled this wonderful space that we're in today in technology.
How long more do we have of Moore's Law, do you think?
Well, clearly there's been a slowing. And, I've only had 30 years of my life dedicated to Moore's Law. And, we always described it as this doubling every 2 years. And now it's probably moderated to a doubling every 3 years. And, as we get below 10 nanometers to 7 and 5 nanometers, we start to hit some more fundamental, technology limits. But I've always described it this way, and I think this is still very true. It's like driving on a foggy night, right? You have maybe 100 yards of visibility or 100 meters of visibility, and beyond that, you're not sure. Moore's Law has always been, we have 10 years of visibility. 2 years later, we have 10 years of visibility. And so it always looks like, and it's been predicted, the end of it for decades now, and it keeps chunking along. And I think it's quite spectacular what the chemists and physicists and have been able to continue to accomplish. So I'm not a naysayer. I don't think it's anywhere near the end, even though its slope definitely has moderated.
Whenever I talk to researchers in the field, they say, Moore's Law may be slowing, but quantum computing is going to give us a whole new opportunity. How seriously in VMware are you taking quantum computing?
Well, I think quantum computing, one is it will never replace silicon, right? Silicon is this magical, stable, manufacturable material. And quantum computing, if it works, right, it's clearly not proven yet that we can do anything useful with it at scale and repeatability of any significance. But if it is, there's a certain class of problems like encryption, for which it could be extraordinarily effective. Narrow classes of problems, I think it could be quite a breakthrough. But in terms of broad computing, right, nothing has come close to replacing silicon. And we have quantum dots, we have different aspects of biologic computing, spintronics, using the spin of, a whole bunch of different physical effects that are being analyzed. But I'm betting on the horse that has been proven over the last 50 years. Silicon is the dominant one for decades to come.
Now, VMware started as virtualization software. It's now known more for providing cloud services to all sorts of businesses, but you're also involved with mobile, with Internet of Things, with security. How do you keep ahead as an organization with where the puck is going?
Yeah, we definitely, I always describe it, A players hire A players. So you make sure you always have the brightest people, and you create a culture for them that they're ready to go hire the best people, right? Second, you give them the hardest problems. You take the brightest people, you give them the hardest problems, you let them go innovate like crazy in that space, you support them, you go popularize their technologies in the industry, you give them an environment they enjoy, and you pay them well. And boy, those kind of people, that's the heart blood of VMware. Secondly, we're also serial acquirers. We have tremendous organic innovation, but we're also going to do inorganic innovation. And we have investments, we're in the Silicon Valley, we're always looking for that cool, bright thing that we didn't invent, because there's always more people outside of your company inventing things than inside. And so we scan that horizon, and just last week we announced VeloCloud. SD-WAN, a category we didn't innovate ourselves, but boy, we saw a company that was doing it, we picked the best of the lot, and we're quite excited about bringing them into the family. But then the other piece of magic there is, when they show up, they have to believe the best thing that I can do to execute my passion and my vision is be part of your company. So we have to culture them, give them the space, really accelerate their success in the marketplace. And that unleashes passion and commitment when we've done that. And if you can do both inorganic and organic innovation and get both of those engines working, as VMware has demonstrated over the last number of years, then you have something magic going on, and I think that's where VMware is today.
Because you are the incumbent, and incumbents are facing challenges by small, nimble teams of startups.
Indeed, indeed.
How do you ensure that you don't get left behind? How do you get that culture going through the organization that we have to think in an agile way?
It's always critical that every team is looking, and understanding what's going on in the industry, and then to be constantly challenging, are we bleeding edge? I have this, one of our products right now that's extraordinarily successful today is called vSAN, our virtual storage product. I had the chief architect of that business area for me in his office, and he was describing to me why they need to do a fundamental rewrite of the core engine in this product because it's no longer leading edge. Now, this product is growing well over 100% year on year. It's in the early phase of its growth trajectory. We're just ripping it up in the industry as this thing is growing so rapidly. And even though we're at that still early trajectory, my chief architect for that product is ready to rewrite the core engine inside of it to make it more modern. And that's exactly what you need going on all the time. People looking to harden the technologies, but also making sure every one of them is bleeding edge all the time, understanding the best and the brightest in the industry, and ready to disrupt themselves. And we have a very technical leadership team at VMware. Some of the brightest product people in the industry are part of our leadership team. And as you look across those people, they are able to go deep. And I always, view myself, I'm a technologist. A great day for me is when I have engineers sitting in my office interacting on technology, keeping me close to what's really going on. And I sort of describe myself as a blue-collar CEO, if you would, somebody who's ready to get his hands dirty in the trenches. Because I believe running a technology company, you have to stay close to the technology. You need people every day who are ready to disrupt, create, and innovate.
So what are you most scared of?
We've opened up so many new areas. We're doing virtual networking. We compete with Cisco. We're building new cloud capabilities. We, are building on top of, even as we're, interacting with Google's, Amazon's, Alibaba's, et cetera. We have to stay ahead and build on top of their capabilities. We're, dealing with cyber challenges and building more of that into our products. We're opening up entirely new categories, mission critical, telco and service provider marketplace, delivering on IoT. The thing that I'm actually most energized by and maybe most frightened by is our own execution. We're taking on some of the biggest, most challenging problems in the industry. Our customers are relying on us at scale, and now they're expecting, your reputation says you're going to be able to operate, my cars, my mission critical, my banking systems, my energy distribution systems. It's a huge responsibility our customers put on us, and we have to live up to that expectation every single day.
You're also competing with monoliths like Amazon. So Werner Vogels is in the house. He was there from the start of Amazon Web Services. How on earth can you compete with Amazon?
We looked hard at our cloud strategy a couple of years ago, and what we realized is, in the past, VMware enabled our customers to have compute freedom. Right? We changed hardware into software, and we said the hardware is important, but how we deliver it is much more important, and we gave our customers compute freedom. In the future, our customers are looking for us to deliver cloud freedom and choice. So we shifted our strategy, and we're now building the VMware software stack on top of the Amazon infrastructure, and that's a deal we announced last year. We just started shipping that product a month and a half ago. So I'm not competing with Werner anymore. I'm riding on top of and complementing his success in a very strategic partnership that Andy, Werner, and I put together to build on top of what they do, deliver that value, and a unique set of hybrid or multi-cloud capabilities that the VMware customers now have a pathway to a hybrid multi-cloud future as never before.
So they're a frenemy.
They're a frenemy, and increasingly they're just a friend.
Okay.
We're uniquely enabling customers on the Amazon platform.
So we have a room of busy people. We're going to give them very, very time-constrained answers to the big questions
Yes,
facing
sir.
the world. I'm going to talk to you very quickly about a number of the fields you're operating in.
Yes.
Pat, I just want you to tell us where you see the biggest opportunity here. So you're in Internet of Things. For the enterprise, what is the big opportunity that you think you'll serve?
Big opportunity, high value assets becoming smarter. Industrials, cars, any smart environments in cities and so on, enormous opportunity there. Everything gets smarter in the future.
Cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity. We have to change this. We, the tech industry, have failed our customers. They're spending more on security technologies, and the cost and the number of failures is increasing. We have to change the game. We just released some new technologies that allow people to ensure good as opposed to chase bad. And we think a fundamental rethink of how we execute on security is critical. We just released that, as well as cyber hygiene principles. Do the basics well. You don't need a fancy quantum computer on cyber. You need to do the basics well, just like every good sports team. Practice the basic, you win.
Where does enterprise mobile go from here?
Enterprise mobile, the thing is, everybody becomes mobile. Every service becomes mobile. Every application becomes mobilized, and mobile extends into IoT. What an IoT device is versus a mobile device versus a ruggedized device, a spectrum that becomes everywhere. So literally everything becomes mobile, and they all needed to be connected, secured, and managed, and that's what we do.
And last question on this, simulation. There's a growing demand from games companies to cities to try and simulate new worlds. How important is that going to be?
Oh, I think it's very important. And, as we think about, I call it the 4 superpowers of the tech era today. IoT, AI, cloud, and mobility. The tremendous thing about cloud is essentially it gives you unlimited capacity. And, that's just magical today that you can essentially, rent the world's largest supercomputer on your Amex for as much as you have time to spend on it. It's just spectacular.
One more thing. Pat has been in some pretty big jobs. He was the first CTO at Intel. I think you were at Intel for 3 decades.
30 years. Yeah,
you were
being
at
CTO
EMC.
at Intel was a very cool job, by the way.
You've seen a lot. And you've also written a couple of books. One of the books is called Balancing Your Family, Faith, and Work.
Yep.
So I just, in the last minute that we have, condense the lessons from your book that this audience can take away if they want to create more balance in their life.
So maybe 3 things. One is write a personal mission statement. Decide what is important to you in life, write it down, share it with your friends, right? And then second, create a lifestyle that supports those priorities. And I'll say, live today like you want to live for the next decade. And if you're not, make changes today. Third is friends for the journey. And I'll say, have mentors in your life who are there making you better every day of the week. Andy Grove was a mentor of mine for well over 30 years. Mentoring with Andy Grove, I called it going to the dentist without Novocaine or without painkiller. He was brutal, he was tough, but he made me better. If you want to have a successful, thriving, balanced career, have mentors in your life that are making you better along the journey.
We've given you cloud strategy. We've given you innovation models. We've given you personal philosophy. Please can we thank Pat Gelsinger of VMware.
Thank you very much, Cindy.